Welcome to the Nutritious and Delicious podcast with me, Bethany. Our mission is to support you as a busy parent with your nutrition and well-being. After all, at Nutritious and Delicious, we believe a healthy family starts with a healthy parent. So I'm super excited because I have Roberta and Ashley here today, and they actually have over 26 years of experience combined as educators and have both been through the teacher burnout in the past. They each have 2 kiddos and love the burnout with everything that's going on. The Teacher Mamas is their podcast, and they are actually helping all these parents. They are passionate about using time and stress management strategies. They teach over to the Mama podcast to take care of themselves, to make sure they are showing up with energy and actually making sure they are intentionally doing this at work and home. So welcome, you guys.
Hello. Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So today's podcast, this is a great one because this is definitely around the mom stuff that a lot of moms are dealing with, is helping busy professionals manage after school routines. So I would love to start with Roberta and find out first, how did you get into the professional state, and kind of how did it all work for you?
Yeah, so I've been a teacher for a really long time, like I said, or like you said, Bethany, and I think in that professional space, I realized pretty quickly that I was good at managing. I got good at managing my time. It wasn't instinctual, but I got good at that. I got good at figuring out how to get everything done in the workday. But then I would come home and feel like I was floundering, like I didn't know what to do. Or it's like, okay, I get home and I'm just so tired by the time I pick my daughter up from daycare. This isn't the type of parent I want to be.
Right.
And so that started me on a journey of learning about just different ways to make the afternoons easier so that I could get done what needed to get done at home, but have the time to spend quality time with my kid. And that started before my son was born, that I started on this journey of learning what works and what doesn't work for our family.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's had to change over the years as we've gotten busier and we've had after school activities now part of the mix. And so it's constantly been revamping and researching and looking for other moms, other professionals who are doing the same thing, and taking pieces that work for them that I think might work for me, leaving the rest, and just creating routines that work for us, but also not feeling like I have to stick to one routine forever, understanding that it's seasonal, that I have to look at routines again and again as time and circumstances change.
So you were a full-time teacher, correct, when your daughter was in daycare?
Yes, I was. Yep. And then when the first year of my son's life, I was teaching full-time. And then, Yep.
We'll get more into sort of each burnout and sort of what were kind of the signs and everything. That's great. Thank you for the introduction for yourself. Ashley, I'd love for you to come on and let everybody know how you started in this space.
Yeah, so mine kind of started when COVID hit, and I was doing distance learning. I'm a shop teacher, so trying to do hands-on activities with your kids from a computer is dang near impossible, and it was burning me out hard. And I felt like a worthless teacher, and I just hated every second of it. I was gaining all the weight that I had lost back. I had lost like 50 pounds previously, quite a while ago, but it just kind of started creeping back on as I was sitting in front of the computer, and I just started feeling more tired and just kind of gross and icky. And that's when I joined a Beachbody just to like get my body moving, start eating healthier again. I knew how to eat healthy, but I needed a little bit of accountability and some help doing it. So, and then with that really turned me on to so many other things aside from just nutrition. And moving your body. And so I started doing more like meditating and journaling and reading and breathing, like just slowing down a little bit. I mean, I was slowed down because we were in, in stay in your house mode, but I still didn't feel like I was like internally slowing down. So just learning all those different techniques and everything really helped me get through those pandemic years, and then has really helped me now in the classroom, because so many teachers that we talk to now are still dealing with so many behaviors and so much exhaustion in the classroom now. And I feel like because I had all this stuff under my belt previously, it has really helped me in the classroom, especially the last couple of years. And then
that's great.
Dealing with my kiddos at home too when I get home.
It sounds like between the both of you and myself included, like it sounds like a lot more like routines and stuff. And that's what we're talking about, because Ashley, you kind of just mentioned like what I went through myself. Like I think with a lot of parents having kids at home, it was sort of like, how do we manage like just the regular day?
Right.
Like it was kind of crazy. And I think now that we're sort of back into the swing of most kids are usually home sort of the afternoon, in evenings. And I think that's where a lot of the times you're, as a mom or a parent in general, you're switching those hats, you're switching those professional hats. And now you're kind of having to go into a completely different role with these routines. Roberta, I'm going to come back to you. What have you noticed with parents over the last few years in terms of their health and their routines? Have you seen a difference sort of with parents coming home and doing all this on their own, and then sort of going back into sort of the workspace and dealing with this at home?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm just seeing less intentional routines, like overall. It's more, everything's so rushed because there's so much going on. There's so many after school activities. There's just so much, and it's not necessarily bad, but so many people don't stop to think about how they could fit a routine into that could serve them and their family. So instead, I feel I hear from parents more often complaining about a lack of time and that they don't have time to have a routine.
Yeah.
I'm hearing that a lot, and I think it's impacting it's impacting a lot. First and foremost, as a teacher, what I'm noticing and looking for is it's impacting their relationship with their kids. You can see that very clearly. It's impacting their relationship with their kids. I think it's impacting the kids' behavior during the day because they're getting less sleep. So that's a huge part of it. Everyone's getting less sleep, and not just less sleep, but less rest. Rest is not a priority. A priority is that we go, almost like we're trying to catch up for the things that we missed out on when we were stuck at home. Like we couldn't do these things, so now we're going to pack in as much as we possibly can.
Right.
And I don't know that that's conscious or subconscious.
Yeah.
But I think that it's happening. And I know that even myself, I'm very aware of trying not to overbook our schedule, and yet sometimes it happens, and I have to take a step back and really do a calendar audit and think about it, how do we want to feel as a family, and are all of these things that we have planned going to serve us the way that we want? Is it actually aligning with the values that we've placed for our family? And if, like, for example, over the summer, if we're thinking about summertime, if I want to be choosing joy and adventure with my family, if those things are our values, but I'm taking on extra hours at work, or, XYZ, is that actually aligning with what we want?
Right.
And it may or may not. But just look, kind of everything we do, looking through the lens of, is this the way we want our family climate to feel?
I love that you kind of base it on the values of the family. And I think if that's great, if that's something somebody can take away, is like kind of look at your core values as a family first and work your way backwards. And I didn't even think about that in terms of people feeling like they've missed out on so much in the last several years, which is interesting because for myself, I feel like I'm doing less, or have my kids in less things, should I say, but they're doing kind of more things intentional at home. So we do believe education is very important. And, I know for myself too, if I overpack my schedule, I'm frazzled, I'm frustrated. And for me, I think it's understanding that we need that downtime. Sometimes that's just like playing around and goofing off with the kids, or just having a day where nothing is scheduled and we kind of just say, hey, what would we like to do today? Let's maybe go to the mall, or let's, go to the mountains or do something, right? So I think that's been good to have sort of that like openness as well of not being so scheduled and rigid. And Roberta, I can understand how a lot of parents are dealing with that. Ashley, what have you noticed with parents over the last few years, especially speaking of like the whole pandemic and everything, in terms of like their routines and the health of parents and children?
Yeah, I mean, we mostly talk with teachers. So speaking with teachers, and just like the groups that we're in like on Facebook and stuff, and just like kind of being that fly on the wall, like what are they talking about? And like we've chatted with a lot of teachers, and the big thing we hear is just exhaustion. Like they're just flat out exhausted. And by the time they get home at the end of the day, they have put all their energy into the classroom, into the kids, and they have nothing left when they get home. So what are they doing? They're running to McDonald's for a meal, and then, like 3 nights a week or whatever. And I'm not like, it doesn't have to be McDonald's, but like they're going out to eat. We're spending more money on food when we don't have to, and which is exhausting us even more because we're not nourishing our bodies like we should. Right. Whereas if we took the time and planned some stuff out, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but just planned a few meals out on the weekend, like just start there. And so you had like a couple of super simple meals that you could come home to, like in the crock pot or whatever. Like that's a great start. And so you're not like, okay, I am pretty exhausted when I get home, but at least I know I have a good meal waiting for me when we get home, and I can feed my family and not feel the guilt of having to bring them to fast food every night because I'm just exhausted. Or a lot of things I've been hearing lately is my house is just a mess, and I have no energy left at the end of the day to even like pick anything up. And I think a lot of it just comes down to simple routines, like having our kids do a really simple routine when they get home from school. My kids have been like, if they walk away from the door and their backpack is flung on the floor and their shoes are all over the place and their jacket is who knows where, maybe left in the car, I make them come back and do it. So this way it becomes routine for them. Mm-hmm. And then once we've got that done, then they've got a quick chore that they can do. I know kids don't want to come home and do work right away. So if they need that break, like give them the break. And then I like to kind of break it up throughout the night. So it's not like, okay, let's do all our chores right now. And everybody is just like more exhausted after that. Like, let's break it up a little bit. Let's have a little fun with it too, because so many kids, like my kids, complain all the time about chores, but if we make it a little bit more fun, like throw some music on, maybe try and race the timer to get the laundry done, or, whatever. And if we have those routines throughout the week, then we don't feel like we're trying to squeeze it all in one night, or, all on the weekend. If we do a little bit each night, or, maybe your nights are super crazy and that is all you can get in is that tiny little like 15-minute routine when you get home. But yeah, exhaustion and lack of routines for yourself too, because the reason we're so exhausted is because we're not taking care of ourselves.
That's very true. You made a lot of good points in there, actually, and I think I want to talk over some of these as well in terms of like tips and solutions, because some of them was the ones that I've been doing, and I want to kind of give some too. So I heard 3 nights a week. That's a great place to start with the food thing, because I think a lot of people think, Roberta, you mentioned like people say right away, I don't have time. I hear that all in my business too. I don't have time. we all have the same 24 hours in a day, right?
Mhm.
Like none of us can gain more time. It's not like money, we can make more money. We can't gain
Mhm.
more time, right? So for me, what I say to people is, your time is really your biggest resource, because if you're giving it away and doing things that really aren't useful for you, a lot of people will sit and binge watch a lot of TV shows. In that time, you could have done all these other things, like prepped a meal a night ahead, ahead or something. The 3 nights a week is great, because I think a lot of people think, oh, it's all or nothing. It's like they have to kind of do
Right.
everything all at once. And they're like, oh, that means I'm going to have to be like meal planning like every day and, all this stuff. And I say, no, like batch cook. Like you said, if you do like a quick crock pot meal, do like a double batch of something. So then you have it for the next night. If they're running to McDonald's all the time. The other thing I was thinking in my head as you actually said that was, the money that you're spending on the takeout, put it towards a cleaner. Like if you're having an issue with like cleaning your home and coming home and then that's stressful too, because I know for myself, I'm somebody who takes pride in having a clean house, and I also don't like to step on
Yep.
dirty things for me. So for me, not having that takeout and things like that, that is like a treat. That's maybe like a once a week as a family. If
Right.
we're out and we're doing activities or something and we can't get home to cook, that's
Mhm.
typically what it looks like for us. But I think people don't realize it's changing, sort of as changing routines, which is great, but also the priorities. So if you're kind of spending that money on McDonald's, it's not cheap anymore. Like just to
No.
get takeout, people think like, oh, it's cheap. It's not. um
Mhm.
like I've taken my boys out just to like regular places like Subway or something that you wouldn't think, and it's expensive, like once you pay for
Very
it, especially
expensive.
if they eat a lot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So using that money and kind of putting it towards something like a cleaner once a week would probably make you feel a lot less stressed.
And I would even I just want to jump in because I love the cleaner thing, and I don't think enough people talk about it. And I think everybody thinks they have to do everything on their own. And I get a cleaner every other week, for like 6 hours for that week. So even if you busted that up as like a three, we're out in the country, so she doesn't want to drive up here every week. So it's like, if you broke that up into 3 hours every week, like that's super helpful. And I'll just throw it out there, like she's $150 for those 6 hours. Like you can find people who are not like super expensive, and it makes me feel so good.
But that's the thing, it's taken something off your plate where you're like,
Mhm.
it's worth it for you and you've prioritized it to make that something that's helped you, right? So the other one was, I know you said the chores with the kids. Actually, I have it on a schedule with my kids, is that
Mhm.
it's probably twice a week, but they have it on their schedule where they have two chores to do, and it's something quick and easy, and I've shown them how to do it. So it's never going to be perfect. It's not going to be a cleaner type of job done, but it's something at least where you can go into a bathroom, or a floor is vacuumed or something along those lines, right? If you can get your kids early to kind of start helping out, then you're not going to have that battle. And that's what I say with people at the dinner table in terms of food and picky eating, is
Yeah.
if you kind of start them early, you're going to have less likely to have the battles with them on that as well. So I would love to hear some tips. So, Roberta, if you kind of want to come on here and maybe let us know what you're doing, what's working for you, maybe even what some parents, what some teachers have said to you that have helped them as well.
Sure. Yeah. So when thinking about this, a few things come to mind right away. One is piggybacking off of what you said, Bethany, about, if you're making a meal, make another and freeze it. Um, I know, like, beginning of the school year, that's always, I know it's a busy season. Um, and I think for all parents, that is just a busy season. It is a transition month, whatever month you start school in. And so I always try to prep as many freezer meals as I can before the start of school. And I think that goes for any season. Like when I was going on maternity leave, when I knew there was a big busy season coming up, I try to prep as many freezer meals that I know we like ahead of time so that they're ready to just quick. And I'm a big crock pot person, so I'm not putting something that I can't just throw in a crock pot. It's got to be a crock pot because that's what I need in this season of my life. And I don't enjoy cooking. So it's easy for me to just cut everything up, spend an afternoon, cut everything up, put it all in bags, label them, put them in the freezer, and then very quickly be able to just grab something from the freezer, put it in the crock pot, and go to work. And then feel like I know in this busy season, whatever that busy season is, that I'm set. I don't have to worry about meals because I've already done the work of planning out what they are. A lot of times too, if it needs like a side dish or something, I will write that on the bag so that if I pull it out to thaw the night before or whatever, then I see, oh, I wanted to add rice with this. I can pull the rice out and have that on the counter.
Right.
So I think that's huge. I think because I can take an afternoon to prep. If sometimes it could be as much as 30 meals, and that feels so good to have all of that done. The other thing is, let's see, I had another one off the top of my tongue. Ashley, do you have one right off the top of your tongue? I forgot what I was gonna say here.
And I like Roberta loves crock pot meals. I love freezer meals. Kind of like what you mentioned as well, Bethany, is like double batch cooking. So if I'm in the kitchen and I'm making a meal that can go in the freezer, you better bet that I am double batching it, because it takes maybe 5-10 extra minutes just to make that second meal. Like probably not even 10 minutes, right? Because it's all the same. You're just like making a little bit more. Otherwise was it after school routines? Is that what you were talking about, Bethany? Or
well, even I was just thinking it goes into sort of bedtime too, and that's where I find a lot of people struggle is like the battle of the bedtime, because again, like you said, and we're wondering why kids are tired, because you think how wired they are probably from doing all these activities. There's probably no transition coming home, and then you're kind of like now shoving your kids into the shower or the bath and being like, hey, get your teeth brushed, and then it's like this, and then they're feeling like super chaotic, and there's probably the lacking of sort of the reading and the settling and all that kind of stuff. So maybe give us a bit of routine that you're doing, Ashley.
Okay, so I just bought these. So my son hates all his routines because he is a little on the ADD side. And so if it's not fun, he doesn't want to do it. And so we struggled with the routines for a while with him, morning and nighttime. And my daughter is a perfectionist like me. So she's like, starts at the top, goes to the bottom. We have a routine chart on our door. I made it in Canva. Roberta does hers through a PowerPoint, which is really cool because she's got the timers built in. So it shows the kids like how long they should be spending on each activity. And then, so my daughter is totally cool with the one on the door, but she wanted to be cool like her brother and use this little, it looks like a little tablet kind of, but it's just got cardstock in it and like separate lines, and you can write in each line. And I drew a picture for him because he's still learning how to read. And then it's got a little slider thing. So when it's not done, it's X'd. When it's done, he gets to slide it over, so it's checked. And this has made it so much more fun for him. And he actually like does his routine really quickly now and does not argue with me. So it's been glorious. And they're just from Amazon, so I don't even remember what they were called. But, you know, if you search something up like that, you'll find them. And there was like 4 of them for $15. It was worth every penny. So things that I put on there, I try and keep his super short because, like I said, he is kind of a squirrel and does not like, you know, he needs it short. And so it's like stuff, he has an inhaler. So do your inhaler, take your allergy pills, get dressed, pick out your clothes for the morning. We want to make sure our clothes are picked out so that we're not scrambling around in the morning. If you haven't done your backpack yet, you could put that on there. I try and have my kids do that before school or like right after dinner as like our dinner routine. Let's see. And then like when they're done in the bathroom and everything, then we get in our beds and we're reading. And my daughter is at a point where she does not need as much sleep as my son anymore. So we allow her to have a headlamp in her bed. My kids are 6 and 8. So they're on a little different sleep schedules, but they're still in the same room. So I'm making her go to bed at the same time as him. And so she gets her headlamp and she'll bring up like her prayer journal, her I don't think her Bible's up there, but there's Bible verses in her prayer journal, a book, a coloring book, whatever she wants to do just so to help her fall asleep. And I think like if you do have a kid who is struggling, that is something super easy to have them do like in their bed. That way they're at least in their bedroom. And I think Roberta is actually the one who like gave me this idea several years ago because she said the same thing to me. Like her daughter was having a hard time falling asleep and she would just say like, you don't have to go to bed, but you do need to be in your room by this time.
Yeah.
Great. I love that. Roberta, can you touch on that point about the bedtime routine stuff?
Yeah, so bedtime routine has been a huge thing for us, partly because we first screwed it up with our daughter, to put it just totally bluntly.
Yeah.
But not thinking it through, my husband ended up being on a night shift, and I was home full time with her when she was really little at the time. I think it was over the summer. And so we just switched our schedule too, so we could be up with him when he was awake and sleep when he slept. Well, then that made things it was horrible trying to switch her back to a normal sleep schedule. And so it took, probably 3 times as long. Like we did this schedule for 3 months, and I would bet it took almost a year before we got her back onto a like traditional sleep schedule. And then even then, it was so hard to get her to go to bed at night.
Right.
So we all the research went into what to do. We tried all sorts of different things, and of course every kid is so different.
Mm-hmm.
So trying these different things, and finally what we found that worked was saying to her, you do not have to go to sleep, because I think that took the pressure off.
Right.
You do not have to fall asleep, but you do need to have mood lighting on. We're going to have your sounds on. And you can take as many books as you want into your bed with you. You can have as many books as you want. You can read for as long as you want. That's fine. But you have to stay in your room. You can't keep coming out.
Right.
And that was finally the turning point for her. And that has continued to be. Now we've done that for maybe 7 years.
Wow.
She's going to be 9 here soon. And that continues to work. And sure enough, like once I say like you don't have to fall asleep, but you have to stay in your room, here's what you can do, inevitably she's asleep within 20 minutes versus the fighting and the back and forth coming out, I can't fall asleep, and blah, 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 and that could be 2 hours sometimes of just back and forth. Whereas just taking that pressure off and saying you don't have to, here's what you can do, that's a calming activity.
That's very interesting because I can relate to that being an adult too, in terms of it's that fight when you're sitting, and I actually had that the other day, where you're sitting in bed and your brain is just wired. And for me, it's like, should I go and work? And I'm like, but if I go and do some work, then I might be up too late. But I pretty much stayed up that entire time just thinking about it. So I was like, I should have.
Yep.
And then I was like ping wide awake at like 5 a.m. anyway. So I'm like, my brain's telling me I need to go do something. So I get the whole like notion. And I think it's that that permission, I think almost as well, just to sort of drop it, because I think when we hold on to that, it feels like a bit of like a bit of control that we can sort of regain or try and do something with. And it sounds very similar to the battle at the dinner table. And that's why I try and tell people, parents in general, like to drop that battle, because they think, oh, if I go hard at it, they will give up. And they like, no, kids are very willful. Like they will just keep going and going. And I have a very willful one myself, so I understand that. It's when you kind of just like drop it. And like you said, it's kind of having that notion of like, you have to try one vegetable. You don't have to eat everything on your plate, or you can, bring all these books to bed with you, but eventually you will fall asleep, or eventually you will try a vegetable, so it's kind of just like giving them the choice and sort of the ownership, I think, over that. I got a few things after what you guys were saying. So to kind of wrap it up, I got a couple of things that I sort of wanted to add in on that too, is that you said a lot of batched food, which is great. And I know you mentioned as well, even doing this while you're pregnant, like this is usually what we do, is we batch cook things before we're about to have a big event. And I know for myself, when I've had my first son, thank goodness I did it, but I batched a bunch of food because I didn't really know what to expect. And I was so glad I had that. And I also had someone else make stuff for me, because I had a very colicky baby. So this baby did not sleep and was not happy most of the day. So I did not have that time to kind of put anything together. It was more like snack eating throughout the day to kind of just suffice what I needed to do. So that's kind of a great one. In terms of busy professionals coming home, one pan meals are great too. So say if like you didn't put anything in the freezer or you forgot to take it out, usually just doing a one pan meal, whether it's just a piece of protein heating up. I usually like to advise as well, just buy the roasted chickens already cooked if you can. So then you already have something on the way home that's hot, and you can basically just throw in some potatoes or rice and then put some vegetables in the oven basically. And usually kids will enjoy roasted vegetables more than boiling them because they taste sweeter. So that's usually like a trick I tell parents too, is just roast them, put some salt and stuff and some flavoring on it that they really enjoy themselves. What I usually do as well with my kids is I have a chore board. So like, it's not the actual chores, but it's like their routine. And I think Ashley mentioned this about having sort of the charts and everything, is with the thing on the fridge, is them understanding who has to feed the dog that day or who has to kind of prep the lunches. Like I make everything ahead of time, but they have to put it in there. So they're responsible for sort of adding things in for themselves. And I think the charts are really good because it helps. Like Roberta, you have an Excel, like that's pretty advanced Excel spreadsheet. So you're kind of like above that, like with the just having everything all ready to go. And I think that's great. And I think even kids like myself included, with sort of that routine thing, I was trying to get my son to stop sucking his fingers. So we actually ended up getting like a poster board, and every time he didn't like do it during that day, we gave him a sticker, and then at the end of the week he got kind of a prize, and it could be a new book or something while we were out. So I love all these suggestions. I would like to get you guys just to wrap up sort of what we talked about, and if there's anything that you want to touch on. So Ashley, I'll get you to go first.
Yeah, I don't know, I just love routines. And I think like the one thing that we forget about is that routine for ourselves. So, if you are finding yourself super stressed out all the time and exhausted, something has to change with you, mama, because we are so busy thinking about everybody else around us all the time, whether that's our job or our kids or our husband or our other family members. Many of us are going through like hardships of our own, whether it's like other sick people in our lives or marriage problems or whatever. And then all that stuff takes precedence over taking care of ourselves. And so if we're taking care of our physical health, our mental health, then everything else is going to, it's just going to flow easier. Even if life is hard right now, if we're, eating healthy, we're moving our bodies, we are, whatever we're doing for that, like mental release, if it's meditation for you or journaling or whatever. And this could be a simple, easy, like 15-minute routine in the morning. It doesn't have to take a lot of time. So that would just be my little wrap up, is make sure you're taking time for yourself.
I love that. And Roberta, what would you like to touch on?
Yes, I agree with everything Ashley just said. And I would add making sure that we are intentional about carving space for joy and things that are fun. I think that's a huge part of rest, which we don't often think about. And when we think about self-care, we are thinking about these things that are more releasing of our emotions, like meditating and journaling, which are so necessary and so important. But as an adult especially, I think a lot of us forget the importance of having fun and how much that impacts our energy levels. So I think towards the beginning of the episode, Bethany, you mentioned carving space to just do something fun and have this fun activity where you're laughing and enjoying time with your kids. And that doesn't just if we're waiting for it to happen organically, it might not happen.
Right.
So being super intentional about creating space to do things that are fun for yourself, that are fun with your family, and maybe you don't know what that is. So it's trying different things maybe once a week, trying something new to figure out what is it that brings me joy. Because I know in this busy world, that is the first thing gone. The things that we think are going to bring us joy or fun, we, for some reason, culturally have pinged them as indulgent or unnecessary. And really they're not. It's a form of rest. It will help us with our energy. It will help us with our physical and mental health. And it's something that's necessary, but we have to be intentional about it.
I love that. You both kind of hit the nail on the head there. And I agree. It's finding something for yourself, whether it's mentally, and like you said, Roberta, too, it kind of comes across as if it's joyous, then it's overindulgent. And I think as mothers, a lot of us usually think if it doesn't involve the kids or the marriage or anything along those lines, or somebody in our family, then we're being selfish, and that's not true. And if anything, if we can't take care of ourselves, how are we supposed to teach this to our children? So kind of what I do is I've always kept this as a routine for me, but for my mental health is working out. That's something, it's not really based off exercise for me. I know it's good for me, and that's the benefits of it for me, but it's not the reason I do it. I do it to decompress, and I do it halfway throughout my day as I'm sort of done part of my work, and I go get my kids and pick them up, because for me, it's sort of that like brain dump, get rid of everything. And what I had to do was I realized sort of picking my kids up and them coming home, and I was sort of saying, okay, let's get into routines right away. They needed that downtime too. And I ended up putting them into like kid meditations, and that seems to be helping. So that transition, so that's kind of like their inner thing for them. So I think if we can do that for ourselves, we're teaching it as well to our children, which I think is fabulous. So how can our listeners find both of you?
Yeah, so we are the Teacher Mamas podcast. You can find us on any podcast hosting site. As of right now, we are not on social media, and we will have a updated website to send to you. We are in process right now of updating everything, so we will get that information to you so you can have it in the show notes.
Wonderful. So that's great. Did you guys take a break from social media? Is that kind of part of a routine for you guys? That's great. I love that.
Yep.
I think that's healthy, and I love that. So it's a good way to sort of showcase that too, as well, to professionals and people in business as well, is that we also are human. We need to take that step back. So I will put that in the show notes for everybody. So thank you so much for coming on. I truly appreciate both of you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Bethany.